NCAA Baseball Tournament Regional Weekend Recap on the College Baseball Experience on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Edge Boost, the bank account that is built for bettors. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet with the promo code SGPN and get a free Refs Are Terrorists t-shirt over at the SGPN store. You can go over there, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/refs. And we're also brought to you by Naira Bets. Get $25 free bet for the Belmont by going to nyrabets.com, SGPN25, promo code SGPN25, nyrabets.com/SGPN25. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the College Baseball Experience. And we're doing a special weekend recap episode after a load, just so much baseball was played this weekend. I've got, first off, my name is Noah Bieniek, and I've got my co-host here, Johnny Venezia, ready to talk about and vent on some of the performances today. Johnny, first off, I want to know how you're doing on this Sunday night and how did the weekend treat you?
Yeah, I as soon as I got home tonight, I prepared myself a double shot bleach martini for all the bullshit that happened this weekend. So let's get one thing straight. For the sport of college baseball, entertainment-wise, living up to the chaos of this tournament and the unpredictability, it was on par. And yeah, I think, honestly, it went past being on par. This is what we expect this time of year, but I don't think a lot of us expected what we got. And for betting purposes, it's been awful. Flat out took a bath this weekend, missed almost every single regional winner. And the shitty part is I had a lot of upsets in the regions. I had a lot of the 2s or 3s winning, but I picked the 2, the 3-1, or I picked the 3, the 2-1. I had a handful of regional hosts going down. A lot of them did lose. And a couple of the regional hosts that I had losing, like UCLA, USM, looked like they could be moving on here as what I thought was the most vulnerable hosting. So it was definitely a rough weekend. And this changes the tournament, not just because we've seen some of the teams that I thought had a really winnable path, even if they weren't as strong as what they look like on paper, that we followed these teams all year, but it changes the field for the rest of the tournament and for the rest of the teams. Now, some of these teams were very fortunate because they didn't have to play the tougher opponents to get past the regional. And in some cases, they're facing near layups in the super regional. So there's a few teams that could be strutting Omaha with a quick little 2-0 sweep next weekend in the super regionals.
I guess so. That's one way to look at it for sure. The way we're going to structure this show, if you've ever watched the college basketball experience, every night we do game balls. We mix in dumpster fires as well. Johnny and I are going to trade game balls and dumpster fires from this weekend. Teams that we were impressed by, teams that we were super disappointed by. Johnny, you're the guest, my man. This is your first time doing this type of format. Do you want to start with the dumpster fires or the game balls? Do you want to be positive or negative first?
I'll start with the game ball.
All right. So we'll do game balls first. Johnny's going to do 3. I'm doing 3. We'll go back and forth, allow each other to add some analysis on it. But for this one specifically, the game balls, I mean, just what regional winner were you the most impressed by this weekend, Johnny?
There was a handful. Let's start down in Conway. Coastal Carolina is one of these teams that, in my opinion, falls into that bucket where they were fortunate to avoid the best and most talented team, I should say, in their own region with Florida. The Gators, because they lost the first game against ECU, ended up drawing against the 4 seed in the region. You'd have to refresh my memory who that was. Beat them and then come back and lose against ECU in very pathetic fashion. So Coastal Carolina did not have to face Florida. And, I had Florida winning the region. And there was some I can't say I'm truly surprised that they lost, but I'm surprised how they lost because they were playing really well in the second half of the year, and albeit some of it was against the Mizzous and the South Carolinas, but they didn't really have any sort of – is that Irvine went deep?
Yeah, Irvine Yabo.
Oh, Irvine, stay alive, baby. They didn't have to face the toughest team in their region. So even though Florida was disappointing in how they lost, Coastal Carolina, man, this was a team that we've talked about. I only took Florida in that region because I thought they were playing hot. They had the pitching, and this is Kevin O'Sullivan's it's his time of year. He's always showed out. But the Chanticleers in their own home region, they looked good. The pitching was magnificent, and that's something that we knew. Coastal hasn't had a legitimate pitching staff in almost 10 years, and they proved that they have it. They were able to handle East Carolina, who is a pesky mid-major, who always faces Coastal tough, and they're moving on. And I got to say, man, they're going to be facing Auburn next weekend in Auburn, and I think it's going to be a real chance for the Chanticleers to move on. So give the game ball to the whole team. Kevin Schnall got his guys ready. First year as a head coach, that program taking over legend Gary Gilmore after basically 30 years as the head coach. Definitely gets my first game ball.
Yeah, just on that regional as a whole, you did a pretty good job at touching on it. But, I picked against Florida in game one. I hit on East Carolina there. But then I bet Florida game two the second time around when they were going to play East Carolina. Super surprised. But honestly, just the defense kind of killed them. That's what caught up to them at the end with all these injuries. They were right up the middle of the diamond. The depth was not as, premier defensively, that's for sure. And, that's what caught up to the Gators. But for Coastal Carolina, man, the way that they impressed me the most was the two different styles of ball games they won against East Carolina. The first game was an absolute firefight. That place was the roof blew off the Palace when they hit that grand slam. That kind of gutted East Carolina as well. They won it basically in the sixth inning. I think that was when it was. And the second time around, it's 0-0 going into the eighth inning. and it's a pitching duel, and Coastal was able to take that. So, yeah, I'm just super impressed by the balance that this Coastal Carolina team has. I've been talking about it all season long, but the starting rotation's good. They've got 3 or 4 trusty bullpen arms. And the lineup has its good moments, and they just need to get those clutch hits. And yeah, they could end up in the College World Series. They have Auburn on the other side, but yeah, I think that's a great game ball, Johnny. There, I want to go to Auburn, their super regional partner. I need to eat crow. I ate shit here with the Tigers, and just watching them the entire weekend completely lay warpath to my future portfolio. In the preseason, it very well. I had Stetson as a mid-major to get to Omaha, and then I had NC State as a team in mid-season that I thought could win the national championship with the strength on the mound. The reason, one of a few reasons that I was kind of negative on Auburn was I didn't know how the young pieces would be able to perform under the bright lights in the big moment of, these type of games. And that third game against NC State, they come out and they just run up the score early, take the Wolfpack completely out of that game. The trio of freshmen in the lineup, Chris Rumbert, Bub Terrell, Chase Freilich, 10 for 14 in game 3, 8 RBI, 6 runs. The 3 of them only struck out once combined. And then what can I say about Ike Irish? Everybody knows of Ike Irish, but he had so many big hits this weekend as well. And Auburn buries me alive, basically. And now, I'm set in the super regional. I'm going to have a Michigan rooted superstar in college baseball get to Omaha, either Jacob Morrison on the mound for Coastal or Ike Irish for Auburn. So I cannot wait. I'll be out there. Johnny, Auburn gets to super regional. They sweep the regional.
Listen, I had NC State, and we came into this weekend talking about, NC State 3-1, Stetson around 7-1. It was a good idea to take both of them because there's a good chance one of them could win the region. And, listen, in that regard, we both said this is still likely that Auburn's going to win because Auburn is a really good team. But the reason we picked against them was because Auburn was north of minus 200. You're not going to take that team with two really live dogs in your region, also with questions of your pitching. Now, listen, let's give them their flowers. Auburn played a tremendous weekend. They kind of got hit in the face early against Central Connecticut on Friday.
That was the pitching disaster game.
But listen, we saw a lot of 4 seeds punch a lot of 1 seeds in the face on Friday, and not all of them responded. Auburn did. So, they deserve a lot of credit. They are a very well-coached team. Butch Thompson has done a fantastic job this year. They've always had the offense. That was never a question. The pitching's been a question. And truthfully, it still is a question. But, at least for one weekend, they were able to handle that. And, they boat raced NC State. It wasn't even close. They boat raced them. They were able to shut down Stetson, who was building momentum last night late for a potential comeback. And, let's call it what it is. Auburn did their job, and not every host did their job, especially the SEC hosts. So bravo to Auburn. Very, very well done. Flowers for you guys. I'm going to go out to Arizona and Eugene. Arizona, talking about Coastal, a team that did not have to play, in my opinion, the best or the most talented opposition in the regional. They did not have to face Oregon. I knew Oregon for me all year coming into the season was not a team I was going to bet for the College World Series. I don't bet West Coast teams. Oregon has always been missing something. They just had never seemed to get past super regionals in this decade here. So I didn't think Oregon was necessarily bound for Auburn, Omaha, especially considering the fact they were probably going to have to go to UNC, assuming UNC holds up. But Tua Barbecue is insane. And even more so, Arizona gets lucky, man. This is about the draw, dude. And this is the kind of thing that happens. Arizona goes to a spot where it looked like they were going to have to play Oregon and get past Grayson Grinzel, which we know they do not hit lefties well. And Oregon should have won the first game. They got hosed by a terrible call, and that absolutely changed the trajectory of not just their season, but the entire regional. But nevertheless, they shouldn't have been in that situation against Utah Valley at home. But it changes the course because now Grinzel doesn't throw against Arizona, which was a huge matchup advantage.
Yep.
And Arizona cakewalks. But they were up to the challenge. They look fantastic. They look fantastic the entire weekend. They gutted out a close one against Cal Poly, it's a good program, Cal Poly. They're definitely one of the tougher mid-majors in the sport. And they boat raced the last 2 days, man. Mason White, 3 fucking homers yesterday. Aaron Walton, 3 homers today. And this is a team that's kind of been offensively challenged outside of like 3 or 4 players. I mean, it's really Summerhill, Mason White, Aaron Walton's had his moments, and then they have a couple other guys here and there that step up. But let's give credit to the Wildcats. This was a team that you were very high on. And I got news for you, man. They did their job. They went in and they swept that regional. Anytime you can do that, that's impressive, regardless of who you play. Now, Arizona is ultimately going to have to go to UNC, assuming UNC can avoid one of the biggest colossal fumbles in modern NCAA tournament history. And that would be a really great series. So I'm going to give Arizona my second pair of flowers, headlined by Mason White and Aaron Walton for 3 homer games over the weekend, respectively.
Yeah, man. I honestly, you gave them your game ball. Honestly, I don't know if I would have them even in my top 5. They played the 3 seed twice, the 4 seed once. They had a pretty nice draw here overall. The first game, man, they were in a total dogfight against Cal Poly, right? They win that thing 3-2. They were out hit 10-2. Arizona's run source that game was a 3-run bomb. They had one big hit, and it was able to carry them to a victory there. But I want to put this in perspective and get this out there. Coming into the weekend, the Wildcats entered the tournament 53rd out of 64 teams in total home runs hit, with 59 total. This weekend, they hit 14 in 3 games. They hit 13 home runs on Saturday and Sunday combined. Just unbelievable, one, but also kind of believable because there were, speculation that we'd be getting those good juice baseballs again in the NCAA tournament. And man, oh man, have we seen a hell of a lot of offense this weekend. I think we might have been on to something there. Anything you want to add on to the Arizona thing before we move on?
All I'll say is they're going to be tough to beat if they have these performances where they have one of their guys hitting 2 or 3 homers a night. They're going to be a tough out.
Yeah.
But the pitching's interesting. Owen Kramkowski he's really turned a corner. I mean, he's been solid throughout the year, but he's really doing what teams need at this point in the season and just taking over a different level. Smith Bailey's always dangerous. Like Smith Bailey's one of these guys who's, I'm going to say he's high variance, but he doesn't really have that low of a floor. He's had a couple bad outings, but the ceiling is really high. And this kid is mature beyond his years as a freshman. Like this is a guy you're going to circle his name in a couple of years. Like Dax Whitney gets all the headlines. Dax Whitney threw a hell of a game yesterday. But like Smith Bailey, I don't know if he's exactly on that level, but he's up there. He's a first rounder in a couple of years when he gets his name called out in the draft.
I think so for sure. I agree.
And Tony Pluta, man, Tony Pluta's really done well. He's had a great year, and he's really become a just nails lights out closer at the end. Sub 1.8 ERA, strikes out a ton, a lot of presence on the mound. So listen, man, I really like how Arizona's just got some guys that are stepping up, and I understand they didn't beat anybody after that first game against Cal Poly, but you know what, man? Listen, they answered the bell, and a lot of teams that were expected to do so this weekend did not.
Yeah, I want to go back to Dilly Dagger's comment here. He goes, if UNC loses on the left side of the bracket, it is now the wild, wild west. Totally up for grabs. I totally agree, and I established that left side as the weaker portion of it, and that was a big reason why I thought North Carolina had a great chance to win the national championship, because that entire left side of the bracket, that's all they're going to play in Omaha. So that one side of the bracket is going to be madness in Nebraska later on in June. So
all about the draw. Always about the draw.
That's why, I only fired on 2 midseason futures to win the national championship because, the way that the year was playing out, it was so kind of hectic back and forth. Like no team really was able to keep any type of consistency week to week other than Texas. Then Texas's ace goes down. The price was never really right to jump in on the Longhorns, or it was actually their Max Ballou, their best hitter, goes down. The price was never really right on the Longhorns. Then their ace goes down, and you couldn't really get in on the Longhorns. We'll talk about them a little bit later on if you like. But before we finish with the game balls, we'll be doing our other 3 most impressive teams of the weekend. I want to talk to you guys about the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals that are going to begin this week, and you can get all of the SGPN free picks and podcasts with the SGPN app. Go over there, download it on the Google Play or Apple stores. Edge Boost is also the first ever bank account that is built for bettors, ensuring all gambling transactions are approved. There are no usage fees, no minimums. You can earn cashback rewards today and get 100% approval for all betting deposits. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet with the promo code SGPN. And if you sign up this week, you'll get a free Refs Are Terrors t-shirt. Go over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/refs to claim your free shirt. And Underdog Fantasy is going live right now for the NBA Finals with their extender bonus on their Pick'em platform. Hop in during game 1, and the longer that the series goes, the bigger that the bonus will get. Sign up today with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick, plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus credits. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. And you can bet the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga with Naira Bets. Sign up today with the promo code SGPN25 and get a $25 free bet plus a $200 deposit match bonus. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just getting started, Naira Bets makes it easy to jump into the action. The exclusive offer is just for the Belmont Stakes, so don't wait. Join now this week. Claim your free $25 Belmont bet today at nairabets.com/SGPN25. And we're back here on the College Baseball Experience. Myself, Noah Bieniek, and I'm joined alongside Johnny Venezia as we're recapping, regional weekend of the NCAA tournament. Game balls. So our first 3 game balls went to Coastal Carolina. I went to Auburn, and then Johnny followed it up with Arizona. The next game ball that I'm going to take you to is the UTSA Roadrunners. First ever super regional in program history. Pat Hallmark and the job that he's done is truly tremendous. Us over at 11.7 gave him mid-major coach of the year. And it just so happened that his draw included the Power 4 conference coach of the year, and Jim Schlossnagle. And he goes in and takes wins both games they played in Austin at Dish Fox Field. And, the offense tallied 26 runs in 3 games. Everybody talking about Mason Lytle coming into this game, but that offense is pretty good. There's 6 or 7 guys that are batting over 300. Mason Lytle, James Tossig, and Norris McClure combined to bat 405 over the weekend with 11 RBI, 8 runs scored. Super impressive by UTSA. They had a good contingency of fans over there at Dish Falk as well, being that it was only an hour and a half drive from San Antonio. UTSA went in there and made the place theirs. They pissed on the Longhorns territory. It's their house now, Johnny.
Yeah, UTSA, man. Are we getting this one mid-major that does this every year? Last year it was Evansville. The year before it was Oral Roberts. I mean, UTSA, for anybody that's really followed the sport, knows they're not. I mean, in general terms, for people that are just like kind of casual with following the sport, or just tuning in this time of year, it's not really a well-known program for baseball, but they've always had some dogs, man. Remember my boy Dylan Rock from A&M came over from UTSA, who was a star for the Aggies in 2022. But it's not really a surprise. They won the AAC regular season conference. I think they were like 20-1 at one point, because ECU was getting so much of the money, as they always do, because they're always expected to win, because there's never really any other team that emerges as anything close to a veil threat. But the Roadrunners outplayed Texas, dude. That's just what it came down to. And I hate it, because Texas was a team I really liked preseason. They had all the juice, and they looked so good. And at some point, though, the injuries are just going to come bite you in the ass. You lose Jared Spencer, and we talked about this so much. It just forces everybody to move up a spot. And if you don't think losing Jared Spencer here mattered, you haven't watched Texas baseball long enough, because Spencer is going to be a guy that's going to throw game 2 after Texas takes the first game. Against UTSA, Spencer was going to throw that first game. And, granted, listen, I don't know if Spencer changes anything, but maybe it changes the way the bullpen is used. And the weird thing is, they were up 6-1 late, and the bullpen, who's been one of the best bullpens in the entire country, it just implodes. It gives the game away, and that changes everything for them. But, I mean, listen, dude, the Roadrunners got a ton of heart. They have a lot of talent. They got the Hallmark Channel running the program over there in Pat Hallmark. I mean, listen, dude, I think they're live in the Super Regional. I think just the way they travel, the kind of pitching they have, an offense that's deep, it wouldn't be a surprise to see UTSA make that run, man. And ultimately, I think now, with just so many wrenches being thrown into this thing, why can't UTSA make another run? They have a really good closer in Orlowski. They have a deep lineup. They have a great coach. They got fans that travel.
And a good starting rotation.
Yeah, and they don't give up. I think they definitely deserve their flowers, but I think a lot of it falls on Texas too. It's another top seed that kind of just, imploded. It was a winnable path. Like UTSA is a good mid-major, but they should not be beating Texas in Austin after the season they had with the talent that they have. I think it is just it's just summing up this kind of crazy season that we've had, in my opinion. I hate that Texas loss because I was on them in the preseason. And, listen, I saw how they were playing late in the year after the injuries hit them and just kind of felt like they were running out of gas. And, just because I believe in teams preseason and like they get there, I like to stick with what I had. And I don't want to jump ship because something went wrong. Like, this is baseball. This is sports. Shit happens all the time. And I didn't want to just jump off the ship. But, deep down, I knew something wasn't right with this team. They're no longer invincible. And the fact is, the thing that's been the best for them all year in their bullpen was the thing that ultimately undid them. Irony at its finest. But yeah, UTSA, man, big hat tip. That's no easy task going into Austin, taking down the Longhorns. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah. So UTSA didn't submit a bid to host a regional. The statement from Hallmark was that if we couldn't host on campus, for anybody that doesn't know, they basically have like high school facilities. If you watched the selection show, they were in their locker room. Yes, that wasn't a closet. That was their locker room. And I don't think that they'll be hosting, even if they did decide to submit a bid here this week to host the super regional. One, UCLA hosts and they're a 1 seed. They'll host the super. But two, UC Irvine hosts and then they submit a bid. They'll win that bid. So the Roadrunners are heading to Southern Cal, and it's winnable. UCLA looks unbelievable this weekend, but I'd like to see how the UTSA Roadrunners fare after taking a flight to the West Coast. Johnny, your third and final game ball.
I'm looking here, and I got burned on this one because this was one of those regions where I picked a longer shot to win. They did, but not my longer shot. Georgia was a team I had concerns about for the second half of the year. When they were racking up all their numbers pretty much in the first half of the season, honestly, before the Auburn series, when Auburn came to town, when they were racking all these numbers up, and the Georgia offense was like, well, maybe it's better than the unit they had last year when Charlie Condon was wreaking havoc on the sport, and, Corey Collins, and, Georgia's going to finish the job this year. Wes Johnson, his lineup's deeper, and, they finally got pitching. Well, I got news for you. I had concerns coming into that weekend. I picked Auburn on Samuel Dutton Day. When the Tigers came down to the Dogs, and it was a close game. Georgia ended up winning, but I'm like, Georgia's offense, I don't know if it's as good as what we're making it out to be. They haven't faced legitimate pitching. So let's see what happens when the pitching they face is the SEC's best. The offense slowed down. Yes, there came some key injuries like Zaborowski picked up an injury, and that kind of curtailed the overall offensive production. But ultimately, the thing that was always a concern that they did not address in the offseason was the pitching. The pitching is why they didn't make it last year. The pitching was going to be the thing that did them in this year, and that's why I picked against Georgia in this region. And they were a sizable favorite. They were minus 300. And I'm like, listen, Oklahoma State, 10-1 made no sense. And, I explained, listen, they're a fundamentally flawed baseball team. From the beginning of the weekend, I'm like, this is a team that is flawed, but if they play up to their potential with the advantage of a starting rotation they have, in my opinion, was the best in the region, they got a chance. Their offense, when they play, despite being high variance, in that ballpark, they can take over. And, I thought Josh Holliday made a shit decision in not throwing Harrison Bodendorf game one, pitches off against Duke. That put them in a hole right away.
Bodendorf was sick, so they didn't throw him game one because they knew they would have a second game during the weekend that they'd be able to throw him. And the second game was against the 4 seed Binghamton, so they're like, if we can't beat him, without
Yeah,
Bodendorf, then we don't deserve to play. So that's why he threw game 3 of the
fine.
weekend.
And even that being the case, they battle back. They beat Duke they beat Georgia the first game in walk-off fashion, which was, I mean, that's an electric game. That's a great game regardless of which side you had, which we had Oklahoma State. Luckily, we got a fucking winner for a change this weekend. But then they're up on Duke. They're up 2-0 going to the bottom of the 8th. They bring in, I don't even remember who they pitched. They didn't even throw one of their key guys. They held Youngerman back. Throws a gem, up 2-0, bottom 8, AJ Gracia homers, 2-1. Then all of a sudden, Holiday decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to bring in the guy who faced Duke in the first game on Friday and got his titties lit in Mario Pescia, which is a St. John's transfer. I have admiration for the St. John's transfers. He gets lit up. So you know what? In the clutch, we're going to go back to Pescia against a team that destroyed him just 2 days ago. And what does he do? He coughs up the lead. And I mean, the fielding was awful because there was, I think, 2 outs. It was a 2-2 count with 2 outs. And he gives up a base hit that scores the run to tie the game. That ball got in the gap, but didn't get past any of the outfielders. And somehow the kid scores from first and takes the lead. And then that's how they lose. I mean, disgusting behavior. But Flowers got to go to Duke, man. We talked about it. I personally didn't think Duke had as good of a chance as OK State or Georgia to win this region because I didn't like their pitching. I didn't think they had any dominant pitching like they had in years past.
Kyle Johnson comes around, man.
What? Yeah.
Kyle Johnson with his best start of the year.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Johnson, the Friday guy to start the year, comes around. It's a revolving door. Duke's offense, really it's been carried by Van Wilder, aka Ben Miller, in his 6th year. Could have got a fucking nursing degree at this point. But listen, man, got to give flowers to Duke. That's a tough region to come out of. And Duke was really being the team that wasn't talked about, despite being the second favorite. I didn't like Duke coming into the year. I thought they lost too much. They started out awful. Like NC State, kind of snuck up on everybody, won like 17 games in the ACC. And then they were able to come out and win this region down in Athens against 2 very talented ball clubs. So I got to give Duke my flowers, man. That was a very, very good regional win for them. Is that through? There we go.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's go, Irvine. Sack up, Irvine. Come on, you motherfuckers.
Tying run at the plate for the Yankees.
Come on.
Middle of the – I think it's Chase Call. I think it's middle of the order.
Call had 2 tatas earlier today. Let's go. Come on. Be the guy, Call. Come on, baby. Sack up. Let's go, Irvine.
Dude. No, that's not Call.
Who is it? Call?
I want to talk about Duke, though. I mean, they are going to their 4th super regional in 7 years. This was a program that, still has not been to Omaha. And now, dude, they're going to draw either Ole Miss or Murray State. And if they draw Murray State, they could very well host that super regional. I don't know if Jack Coombs is up to the standards of, hosting level regulations and whatnot, but Murray State doesn't have like a great facility either. So I'm curious of what's going to happen there when both teams host or bid to host. But Wallace Clark setting the table at the top of the order, like all weekend long. He goes 9 for 14 in the regional, 2 home runs. I think they were both in that second game against Oklahoma State. He scored 4 runs, 3 RBI in the 3 games. The way that the umpires handled the AJ Gracia ejection, I think was piss poor. Like the guy took 2 steps onto the field with a hard hat on. Like, sure, it's your rule about props and whatnot, but he didn't do anything harmful, nothing taunting Oklahoma State. It was a quick yank, and now Gracia is suspended for 1 game in the Super Regional.
That is. I mean, I'm sorry.
It's piss poor.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
The umpires were a complete disaster all weekend, but this region was awful in terms of officiating.
Florida State and Mississippi State was really bad too.
Oregon Oregon got hosed too. That was maybe one of the worst calls I've ever seen in any sport, and that's not recency bias. That's valid. I think we have our game is growing at a rapid pace, and it's every year it's taking a bigger step, but there are so many things that need to get worked out. Listen, we can officiate. We can call out officiating any sport. That's never going to change. But certain rules that are not necessarily game related, it's becoming a little bit of a problem. And my thing is this: AJ Gracia getting tossed. Does that happen if the antics with the Georgia-Oklahoma State game don't happen earlier in the day? All the shit that happened with UGA Oklahoma State, with the bat tossing and the staring in the dugout and the warnings and both coaches getting fired up, does the Gracia ejection happen if those antics earlier that day didn't happen?
I don't know. Here we go, though. UC Irvine first and second with 2 outs in the inning.
They've had some opportunities, man. They haven't cashed in on all their. They left some duckies on the pond.
It's Alonzo Reyes at the plate, and he has a home run in this game from earlier. So, but Johnny, my next game ball, you went Duke. My final game ball, I should say. Just for clearance sake, that way a regional team or winner can't say that we didn't talk about them at all during the show. Coastal Carolina, Duke, Florida State, West Virginia, UTSA, Auburn, Arkansas, Louisville, Arizona, all have locked up regionals. That is, I think it was 8 or 9. 9 have locked up regionals. If UCLA wins, that would be a 10th, and we have only 6 game 7s tomorrow. But we could have 7 if UC Irvine completes this comeback. My final game ball of the day, I'm in a bind between 2 teams that I want to give acknowledgement to, but I am going to end up going with the Louisville Cardinals. They got the right breaks, but they did beat everybody in this regional, all 3 teams. It wasn't like they'd got, a great draw like that was favorable for them. They play the 3 seed in ETSU. They completely keep that powerful offense down. They got out and punched Carter Fink early in the mouth, and the Bucks didn't recover from that. They win something like 8-2 or whatever. Game number 2, closely contested battle with Vanderbilt. They were able to get that thing done. They only give up 2 runs. They win 3-2. One of Vanderbilt's runs was on a total great base running play where Mancini goes from second to home on a 1 bad throw. And then the third matchup today against Wright State, shutout. Louisville, the entire thing all year was the injuries on the mound. And coming into this weekend, Dan McDonald said prior to the weekend, the pitching staff had never been healthier. Still, you can't bet on a staff that hasn't shown you anything the entire year. And even if it's their first or second times on the bump, in the case of a Patrick Forbes, where, he had just come back from injury 3 weeks ago or something like that, he has a complete out-of-body experience, or not out-of-body experience. He looked like that early in the season against Texas, but comes back and shoves against East Tennessee State, saves the bullpen. They don't have to go deep. Game number 2, Tucker Biven, outstanding outing. This Cardinals team had an ERA of 5.76 coming into the weekend. They surrendered just 5 total runs in 3 games. They were 132nd in team ERA nationally prior to this weekend. I thought it was an outstanding 3 games against 3 really good offenses that Louisville strung together. So game ball to the Louisville Cardinals. Anything that you want to add on the Nashville regional, Johnny?
Yeah. We got a comment here by Can-Am. Vanderbilt losing potentially on a ground rule double was terrible. That's the rule. It's just unfortunate that the ball The ball jumped up high enough to get in the stands because that's at least a tie game, and we don't know how that thing ends. And one thing we do know about Vanderbilt, if they were able to win that game today, they definitely have enough pitching to battle against Louisville and beat them twice. But, listen, you can't get down to Wright State basically getting no hit through, 8 innings? They walked you 7 times through 8 innings, and you want to take up these walks and just not get anybody in and barely crack a hit on the board. I think the only hit through like 8 innings for Vanderbilt was a Brody Johnston home run. It's, that's how it goes. But let's be honest though. Oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? You took strike 3. Irvine's left the bases loaded twice tonight. Take strike 3 down the middle. What are you doing? Tough. Listen, I don't care if it's outside the zone. That is too close to take. You cannot take that pitch. God, somebody's going to teach.
It wasn't down the middle.
I said I don't care if it's not down the middle. If it's like a little away, you got to. That pitch is too close to take. Somebody's got to tell these kids if it's close with 2 strikes, you got to swing the fucking bat. But, God damn, that's such a buzzkill. In any case, what was I saying? Yeah, well, listen, truthfully, Louisville, how are we going to predict that Louisville is going to do this? Like, we know that their offense is pretty solid, that they have a very unique way of doing their version of like a NASCAR offense where they have a couple boppers, they have speed, they put the ball in play. But the pitching, while it was always talented, and we knew that from day one, A, has been battling injuries, and B, was super inconsistent. So, like, this pitching that hasn't been healthy for like 2 months, how can we sit here and say, oh, well, they're going to have a chance? Well, how do we know that? How do we know they're fully healthy? And they haven't had enough reps in order to sit there and say, well, we think Patrick Forbes is going to go 7 innings in the first game, because we haven't seen it from him since early April or late March. And listen, let's tip our cap there. But disgusting for Vanderbilt, man. And I was talking about this a lot, especially like last or throughout the week, like before the regional started. I think Vanderbilt was the worst best team we've ever seen. Like, they really weren't the best team. Like, the number 1 seed is reserved for the best team in college baseball. I think anybody that's followed it really knows Vanderbilt was not the best team. They were good. They had a couple big wins. They won the SEC tournament, which bought them a lot of favor. They finished the regular season hot. And then there really wasn't anybody else that convinced us. I mean, personally, I thought LSU should have been the number 1 seed because they'd been playing like that to close out the year. But I mean, we knew Vanderbilt was a soft one. The offense has been doing this all year. This is who they've been. They had one guy batting above 300 in Riley Nelson. They had one guy with double-digit home runs. It's an offense that's relied on timely hits and an offense that's done all the little things right with the double steals, getting guys over, and then coming up with a clutch hit. Like, that's all well and good, but you need some boppers in the postseason. You can't rely on stringing together 3 or 4 hits or always coming up with runners in scoring position. Like, that can't be your only source of scoring runs. You need somebody that can neutralize this game with one swing of the bat, and they really don't have that guy. They have one guy that can really do that, and Riley Nelson's been their best offensive threat, but at some point, somebody else has got to step up. And, like, you got no hit by Wright State through 6 innings on Friday night and needed a miracle home run that was fair by 6 inches to get you. And then today you were getting basically 1 hit through fucking 8 innings. It's unacceptable. You're in your own home ballpark. And you weren't, like, Wright State's a frisky 4, and like they've done this in the past few years when they've gotten in as a 4 seed, Noah. But this is your draw. This is your region. This was probably one of the easiest draws that you could have gotten. Like, if we're being honest, we circled LSU and Vanderbilt as 2 of the easiest draws, maybe the 2 easiest. And you get clipped. You win 1 game. Can't do it, man. You just cannot do it.
So that wraps up the game balls portion of the show. And on the other, oh my God, way to come back on. Okay, at least it's a long, long single. On the flip side of the show, we're going to do dumpster fires. And I first want to talk to you about Circa Resort and Casino teaming up with SGPN as they're giving away the ultimate fantasy football experience for a 12-person league to draft in Vegas and be treated like VIPs during your stay. You will get a limo ride from the airport, a $5,000 tab for stadium swim, and a hotel stay for you and your 11 league mates. You can always get 15% off at all Circa properties with the promo code SGP15. Remember that. All Circa properties, that entire strip, there's like plenty of properties. SGP15 promo code. You'll be able to get 15% off. Enter the Ultimate Fantasy Football Contest for free at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/circa. That is sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CIRCA. And you've heard us talk about Rhythm before, and they just dropped a game-changing feature called Power Trends. These are AI-detected patterns where Rhythm's model has consistently won and has a high return on investment. Think of a strikeout pop that hits at 59% of the time when the line and win probability hit at a certain range. Power Trends are updated daily and exclusive to Rhythm. There are no touts, no noise, just clean data-backed bets. Download the Rhythm app today, check out Power Trends, and start betting smarter because you know that SGPN will be. Get your 7-day free trial today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is Rhythm spelled RITHMM. And the college baseball experience is also brought to you by MyBookie.ag. MyBookie is your place to bet on every sport, including the NBA Finals. For the true DGens, the MyBookie money bag is available for you, and the MyBookie accepts customers from a ton of different locations. Easy to deposit, and you can get lightning fast payouts using crypto. Head over to MyBookie.ag, promo code TCE-SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. That is MyBookie.ag, promo code TCE-SGPN. And we're back here on the college baseball experience. We talked game balls, the teams that we were most impressed by over the weekend. Now we're going to do dumpster fires. 3-3 for both of us. Johnny, you're batting leadoff once again. Take me to your first dumpster fire of the weekend.
Where do I start? I need a CVS receipt for this. Well, all right, I got a couple. So, let's talk about the first one. I think Oregon going 2 and barbecue in your own region, and you didn't even lose to Arizona. You lost to Utah Valley, a 4 seed. And like I said before, that call was horrible. Anson Rose gets not only called out because the catcher was blocking the entire plate and had nowhere to slide, but then gets ejected. And that, at the time, that would have been their 5th run, and then they ended up scoring a 5th run later, so that would have been the 6th run, and that would have at least tied it. That's not necessarily saying that they would have won, but one would think, they're going to find a way to win that game. But still, the next day, throwing Grayson Grinsell, one of the top 6 or 7 arms in the country, a guy who probably should have been the Big Ten pitcher of the year, not to take anything away from Joseph Jerwa, but Grayson Grinsell's been money all year. Like, I think he only allowed 12 earned runs in conference play this year. Do you know how ridiculous that is?
Yeah.
12 earned runs in conference play. Before the Nebraska Big 12 conference game. Like, in regular season, he was money. And it's not like he faced a legitimate big-time offense in Cal Poly. Like, Cal Poly's a solid offense. They're a Big West offense. They bat over 300 as a team. Like, they're hit over everything else. They're not a big power team. They're not a huge speed team. They're more hit. Grayson Grinsell, just he gets annihilated. He was not sharp, and that is unacceptable. In a true elimination game, Grinsell was awful, and their offense wasn't good enough. Their offense left a lot of guys on base, and it kept pissing me off because I'm like, wow, everybody's really got the scouting report on Oregon. I don't think I've seen Oregon face anything other than a lefty all weekend. Off the top of my head, I don't know if Utah Valley threw righties or how many they threw, but what I saw from Cal Poly was all lefties the entire game. And like we talked about this, Oregon's struggle coming in was like, yeah, they're going to face a lefty, but I think they can get out of this region because while some of these teams have lefties, there's nobody of quality. They're not facing a Jamie Arnold. They're not facing a Kate Anderson. They're not facing a Liam Doyle. They're not facing anybody that's even remotely close to being a top 3-round pick as a left-handed pitcher in this region. Yet Cal Poly sends 2 or 3 lefties against them deployed, ready to go, and silences their offense, which is it's unbelievable. And truthfully, the thing with Oregon, which is something that I kind of feared because I've seen it throughout the year, their bullpen was always going to be a big problem for them. They've gotten away with it in Big Ten play, but how are they going to respond in this playoff format? Answer was not very good. So Oregon, 2 and BBQ, your own regional, man. Like, I don't know what Oregon's got to do, dude. I mean, they have unlimited resources, and this is another year that they can't get out of their own way. Super regionals back-to-back years get clipped. This year they can't even make a super regional, despite having a very, very winnable draw.
Yeah, I agree with you in a way. I would love to see how this regional plays out. If they tied that game virtually in the 9th inning against Utah Valley, the opening game of the regional. They lost the game by 1. They had the winning run. I think the tying run on second, the winning run at first when the 3rd out was made in the 9th inning, and just make that the winning run on second and 2 extra runs on first. If that run had scored in the 7th inning. And if that 7th inning still goes on, I think they had 2 runners on in that inning too. It completely halted a rally. I will say devil's advocate, like Anson Arrows, I love the guy. Met him in person, had him on Pencil Talk. The slide was a pretty weak attempt at a slide because he just goes down on his knee and then tumbles over the catcher. But he didn't have anywhere to go. So that's the other thing. I loved Mark Wasikowski's reaction to, being asked about the play. He goes, umpire said it came from Pittsburgh. And he's nodding with a stupid ass smile. And then he doubled down on it on the next question. He goes, came from Pittsburgh. They said their hands were tied.
It's like, oh, where's he going to slide? The guy's blocking the plate. He's what happens is if he slides, he's clearly not going to be able to touch the base. He's going to be out. And it's like, well, he's out because he tried to slide to follow the bullshit rule that's clearly fake. And it's so up for interpretation. It's just not real. And he would have slid because he couldn't touch the base. And well, he got tagged out. Well, it was a lose-lose. Let's make trucking catchers a part of the game again. It builds character.
And what Wasikowski was talking about in the press conference, he goes, he was playing hard. That was the first time ever in baseball that I think somebody's been punished for playing hard. Unfortunate that's the way that the cards were dealt, but that's the way that the cards were dealt. They still had a game to go out there and win. They were still, much more talented up and down the roster against Cal Poly. They threw their ace. They should have won that game, and they did not. So I agree with that being a dumpster fire, but I wouldn't have given it the number 1 dumpster fire. Vanderbilt is at the top of that list there for me. Sure, the offense wasn't strong coming into this, tournament. It was bottom 16 in the field of 64 in run creation. You still got to go out there and put up some offense against Wright State. Their best pitcher, Cam Allen, who went out there and looked like the next coming of, I don't know, J.R. Richard. He goes out there and throws 6 no-hit innings against Vanderbilt. This guy had a mid-5s ERA in the Horizon League. What are we doing? And then Griffin Page, 8.90 ERA coming in today. He goes 8 innings. What is going on? And then you got Tim Corbin in the post-game press conference, taking it out on reporters. It's just not a good look anywhere right now in Nashville with the Vanderbilt baseball program.
Shout out to our girl, Aria Gerson, though. Does a great job covering Vandy baseball. Got a lot of information. I've gotten a lot of pitching matchups early. by following her Twitter. Always on top of it. So
she does a good job, but she doesn't have a job without Tim Corbin and what he's built there at in Nashville. And, that highlight, that clip from the post-game presser, it was basically just serving it up on a silver platter, looking for a reaction out of Tim Corbin. What has been the struggle of the offense? Blank, 5-word answer or question. And Corbin looks at her and he goes, "We didn't get a clutch hit." That's a good answer. And then nobody does anything, and he continues on with it and goes completely downhill. And then she asks, with second and third, nobody out, did you think about bunting? Nobody in their right mind is thinking about bunting with the 6-hitter up in that spot, other than Kentucky. Nobody is bunting there with nobody out in second and third. I'm sorry. So, yeah, Vanderbilt, they're a dumpster fire after this weekend.
Where does it go from here?
I thought it was an outstanding comeback year after local media raked him over coals at the end of last year after a regional exit. And, to completely ditch, assistant coaches that he's been with for a long time. He brings in new guys on that staff. He hits the transfer portal, which is something that they were begging him to do. Mike Mancini's a transfer portal guy. Cody Bowker's a transfer portal guy. Connor Fennell's a transfer portal guy. By the way, they bring in Fennell in that game too, and they have to go with their game 4 starter in the third game.
I didn't like it.
So that was not tremendous. But, they used the transfer portal. He got rid of some coaches in order to try to improve that offense. And they were the number 1 overall seed. To me, that is a great year. Unfortunate ending and the NCAA tournament, but you did win an SEC tournament. So
I would be curious to see. I couldn't know this, but the amount of money they paid Jonathan Vastine to come back, who I personally didn't understand, because it's not like he's a legitimate first rounder. Like Jonathan Vastine's maybe he's a good ball player, but even at the college level, he's not a true difference maker. He's not somebody you're going to pay that kind of money to. So I wonder, in lieu of, for paying him, what did they potentially give up? What kind of player did they potentially not pay? And, Vanderbilt's got resources, but where do you go from here? Because, somebody like Tim Corbin, he was always recruiting off what he's built, the name, and, the transfer portal and the money is, in the last few years, has changed a lot. And, especially these guys that have been coaches, legendary coaches for programs that they've built up from nothing for 10, 20, 30 years, they're kind of falling behind the times. I mean, you look at Gary Gilmore. Gary Gilmore's like, dude, I hate the fucking transfer portal. I hate the NIL. I'm out. That was one of the reasons why he hated it. Nick Saban hates it for football. Somebody else was in I can't remember. I know Corbin doesn't like it. Saban doesn't like it. Gary Gilmore doesn't like it. There was somebody else. And it's like, what do these teams do now that we're in this era of Wild West transfers? And,
the other examples, Tony Bennett, Virginia basketball.
That's who it was. Even Brian O'Connor, to be honest with you, which
Jay Wright.
Yeah.
No, Brian O'Connor embraces it.
It didn't seem like he embraced it as much as he should have, because
I clipped him talking about it in Omaha. He loves it. He actually likes it. So
he didn't could have fooled me, because he didn't really pick up the pieces.
I mean, he went to the portal for quite a few guys this year, actually. They do develop from within with a lot of their talent, but
a lot of their pitching didn't seem like it.
They went out and got Chris Arroyo.
Yeah, but they got him more as a bat. I mean, he's two-way technically, but
Jesus, man,
what are you swinging at?
Johnny, your second dumpster fire.
I mean, this list, how long do you got? We could talk about this all night. I mean, we talked about Oregon. We talked about Vandy. I guess the next one on the list is going to be Texas. A lot of these, we've already mentioned before, but I think you're the Texas Longhorns. You have everything you need. I mean, except obviously Jared Spencer, but you blow a 6-1 lead in game 2 to UTSA. Your bullpen has some of the better arms in the country. You have maybe the best reliever in the nation with Dylan Volantis. But I think if memory served, by the time he came in, it was pretty much too late. I realized the offense was up. They were up 6-1 and the offense couldn't extend. And, especially in the sport of college baseball, you can't rest on what you have. I mean, even if you have like an 8 or 9 run lead, you got to keep extending. But truthfully, like 5 runs with that bullpen should have been enough. And when the strength of your team is ultimately what lets you down, that's a tough look. Then they come back out and they don't handle business today against UTSA. I mean, they come out first game, they get Kansas State, they get that done. Okay, fine. Now you got to win 2 against UTSA, and they couldn't even beat them once. I mean, the Roadrunners, we talked about this. They're a really good mid-major program. They're very well coached. They have depth. They have talent at a lot of different positions. But you're Texas. I don't know how many more programs have more resources and more money than you do. You went out and you got one of the most sought-after coaches in free agency maybe ever. And aside from that, you let that coach bring maybe the best pitching coach in the country to join you. And the pitching is what undoes it. The offense, I don't know how they weren't better, man. I really don't. I mean, I understand Ballou was out most of the year, but they have other guys that are super talented. Rylan Galvan, Ethan Mendoza, Casey Borba, Kimball Schusler, Will Gasparino. They have a stud in Jonah Williams coming up, by the way, who's going to be really good in over the next couple of years. But
we'll see if he just goes strictly football after this year.
Well, that's a question. But if he wants baseball, he's got it. Like if he wants to get up for baseball, he can do it. But I mean, I understand. Like we got comments here talking about it was a get up spot for UTSA. Yeah, but you're Texas. You can't lose your own regional. You can't lose twice to the same team in your own regional. Like it's unacceptable.
And in your own recruiting territory too.
Exactly. So I think Jim Schlossnagle, as great of a regular season as he had, that's not going to be what he's remembered for in year 1 under Texas. He won by the SEC by a couple games. The regular season was amazing. He really put a stamp on it and laid a good foundation for what this program is going to be in the future. But losing your own regional to UTSA, who is still a mid-major, is the thing that's going to be the culmination in the microcosm of this season.
I'm going to keep my second. Oh, can't even talk. It's 2 a.m. I'm going to keep my second dumpster fire pretty quick. TCU, out of the uproar and outrage of them not being a top 16 host, to go 2 barbecue against USC and St. Mary's is a really, really tough. USC and Oregon State is a really tough look. I know Oregon State's fan base was battling back and forth with TCU's, and to look like lifeless against the Beavs in an elimination game, tough scene. So Horned Frogs, pretty simple there for me. 2 barbecue.
Yeah, I like TCU to surprise in that Oregon State region, and you know what the crazy part is? It would have went their way. They couldn't beat USC, and I understand because we talked about that game. Caden Aoki, Tommy Lepore, we said Caden Aoki and USC was no gimme. That was no layup. Aoki is not just a really good pitcher. This motherfucker is so clutch. I haven't seen too many pitchers that are more clutch and step up in the big moment more than Caden Aoki in the last few years. So that was always going to be tough, but they were lifeless. Tommy Lepore looked like shit. I don't know. I don't even know if USC had an extra base hit in that game. They just singled them to death. The bullpen for TCU, they brought in their big guys who they have a couple really good ones. Didn't matter. Aoki dotted them for 8 innings. Their offense was just pathetic, which is basically what they've been for most of the year. They've had a couple weekends where they busted out. And then in the elimination game, Oregon State dry humped them. I mean, it was not just a 2 barbecue perspective. It was a gutless, lifeless performance. They didn't show an ounce of fight. So TCU is absolutely up there. Absolutely. They had a chance to get past USC. If they were able to do that, would have faced St. Mary's in the 1-0 game and then would have been able to get to 2-0, had a good chance to get to 2-0, and then had a couple chances to win one more to move on to the Supers. TCU, dude, that is a program that's that they got to change, man. Something's got to change with them because, listen, since they went to Omaha a couple of years ago, which was really just in a lightning in a bottle, one of those magical runs, they've really not done anything. You were better off missing the tournament than what they put up this year. Like you would have been better off. Like the way they got bounced, they're at the very top of the list of teams that had the worst performance this weekend. No question.
All right, Johnny, your third dumpster fire. Keep it quick. We still got a packed show that we want to get to.
Fuck. Oh my God, it's 2:30 Eastern time. Luckily, I work from home tomorrow. Yeah, we're gonna.
Oh my God, they just threw that ball away.
You're ahead of me by like half. God, Irvine's done this. I think I'll probably add Irvine on this list, to be honest. I mean, dude, there's a couple teams. I mean, I could talk about Kansas. I could talk about several other teams, but preemptively, let's throw Irvine on there. UC Irvine, dude. I mean, I had UCLA as one of the top hosts on Upset Alert this weekend.
I think we were wrong about that, by the way. I think UCLA.
I'm still not sold on UCLA. Listen, they played a great weekend. They played a lot better than I thought. Fresno State had chances all game and then just ended up getting boat raced. But for me, UC Irvine should have won that game against ASU. They left a dozen runners on base. They had Ben Jacobs on the ropes, second and third, one out. Couldn't get anybody in. Their pitching was pretty good. They end up winning earlier today. And then look at this, man. Like their pitching got shelled early. Their offense battled back, but their offense left the bases loaded twice. Twice their offense left the bases loaded. And they've had so many opportunities. And like I think Irvine's a better team, more complete than Arizona, even though ASU, like I've said, was the most talented team in this region. And like, listen, I don't really think UCLA is that good. And maybe they'll make me eat my words because assuming they win, they're going to have a very winnable matchup to get to Omaha next week against UTSA, which, by the way, they will be hosting. So, that's probably the most likely scenario. But I think UC Irvine, man, like this was a team that was potentially heading for a top 8 national seed before that UC San Diego series. Their final 3 weeks have been disgusting. And the only reason I said, Irvine, because I felt like they could rise above. They have a really good lineup. They have good pitching that's pretty fairly deep in the starting rotation at least. And they have a fantastic bullpen Swiss Army knife from Ricky Ojeda, Big West pitcher of the year, but can't execute in key situations. UC Irvine, I know there's bigger dumpster fires. Clemson's one of them. So if you want to talk about Clemson, I was so disappointed in Irvine and their situational baseball because this is what they've done all year is execute situationally and are able to dismantle teams because they come at you so many different ways. UCLA is a very beatable team, and they couldn't even take advantage of the 12 opportunities they've had tonight. So UC Irvine is my dumpster fire because I expected more from them.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you went UC Irvine, honestly, but you left this one up on a tee for me. I didn't want to do this to Clemson. I like Clemson and their program. I do. I like them. It was not their year. I think they played above my expectation, honestly, getting a whatever seed, 11th seed or 10th seed.
11.
This regional, in my opinion, was up for grabs. Gut reaction pod, I had West Virginia. Then after some research, I took Kentucky. I didn't expect Kentucky or Clemson to get out of this regional. I thought they were dealt a shit hand from the beginning of the year when 2 of their top 3 starting pitchers go down with an injury. And then Ethan Darden gets hurt mid-year. And then, just this weekend. Look, you were in that game against West Virginia. And West Virginia ended up taking it from him. West Virginia played outstanding. West Virginia played outstanding in game 2. And it was back and forth affair. West Virginia then, tacks on the runs in the 9th inning there. And I'm disappointed in the fans leaving. We know this Clemson team does not give in ever. They had the winning run at the plate. What are we doing?
With Lucas Malstead, though, Noah, they had Malstead up with a lead. They gave up like 5 runs in the innings 8 and 9 combined, and they had a lead with their closer.
Malstead hadn't been dominant the last 3 weeks. I've been screaming this from the mountaintop. He hadn't. Since the Florida State series, he's been getting hit. So Clemson was overrated, in my opinion. And honestly, I was out on them in the beginning. Like, nobody loves Clemson and Eric Bakich more than I do. I thought they were a bit overrated this year. And we saw it play out this weekend. You have probably more animated thoughts against Clemson this weekend than I do. Go ahead.
I do. I just, listen, it's not just a talent thing. I knew Clemson was very vulnerable. That's why I had Clemson losing next weekend in the Super Regional to LSU, assuming LSU got passed. And LSU would play Clemson if that was ultimately going to be the thing. But
yeah, I mean, that's not a shoe-in. Mighty Little Rock. Come on, baby.
Oh, I'd be so mad. No, not Little Rock, please. Please. I need one of my big teams to get in, please. I had a bad enough weekend already. But I don't know. Listen, dude, I had Clemson winning this region because I had them going to Omaha preseason. And truthfully, that wasn't the reason why I picked them to win this region. I picked them to win this region because I thought I didn't really like West Virginia. We haven't seen them beat a good team all year. And quite frankly, for them to win last night, they needed Clemson to basically hand them the game, which is what happened. Kentucky, I felt like was live because, frankly, they're like cockroaches. You stomp them out and they still come back 100 more in their place. So I did think this was maybe the second most up for grab region along with the UCLA region. So it's not a surprise to see them lose, but again, it's how they lost. Like today against Kentucky in an elimination game, you're up 2-0 early. How do you lose the way you do? First of all, they got blown out, but half of their runs they gave up were all defensive errors. Like Kentucky grabbed their first 6 or 7 runs off pure nonsense by Clemson's defense, throwing the ball around, can't hit a cutoff man, can't hit the catcher on a rope or on a fly even from the shallow outfield to gun down a runner. They're throwing the ball around like it's the way they lost. The defensive performance from Clemson was unbelievable. And then on top of that, you're going to let the Kentucky pitching just dot you up. Basically, if there was a run rule here, they would have got run ruled. It's how they lost. And I didn't think they were going to have enough pitching to get out of it after, they lost to West Virginia. But I mean, truthfully, listen, Aiden Canuck had a down year, dude. I mean, that's just what it is. Canuck needed to be Superman for them. Cam Cannarella had a couple really big moments, as he does. And ultimately, that was one of the reasons why I picked them as well. I'm like, listen, this team has talent, but they haven't put it together all year. Cannarella always comes up with the big play. I mean, he came up with a couple big plays, a big home run. But they just weren't getting production from anybody else. Their bullpen fell apart, man. And truthfully, that NC State series changed the trajectory for them because coming into that series, they looked good. Even if there was problems under the hood, this team looked like, hey, you know what? They might not be as complete as they were in past years, but they have a great coach. They have an ace. They have a star in Cam Cannarella. They have talent across the board. Listen, we've seen teams that are less talented than Clemson get out of a regional, and they're at home in a place that's very hostile to play in. Even in an up-for-grabs region, that's why I went with them. And I'm just really disgusted at how they played. Very fundamentally unsound. That is not how Clemson baseball usually goes about their business.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a weekend recap if we didn't talk about the biggest news story, the biggest bombshell of the weekend. That was Mississippi State. I mean, this whole coaching saga has gone on for a month, right? They fire, they let go of their head coach, Chris Lemonis before the Kentucky series, the Monday after a series loss to, was it who'd they lose that series to? Mississippi State. What series loss caused them to fire Lemonis? I can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyways, it was the weekend. It was the week before they played Kentucky, right? They get rid of Lemonis, who had given them a national championship, led them to their first, that's the athletic department's first national championship. And they fire him 3 weeks before the regular season ends. They wait an entire month. They keep everything hush hush. We saw maybe it was Auburn. So we saw the initial list of candidates from everybody out there in the media space, and then nothing for an entire month. Then all of a sudden on Friday of the regional, your team's about to go out there and play a baseball game against Northeastern, who was a 27-game win streak. And it gets leaked that Brian O'Connor's the front runner and is ultimately going to take the job at the end of the season. What are we doing? Mississippi State athletic department purposely tried to tank the entire year of Mississippi State. They go on a run to finish the year. They get in the NCAA tournament as a 3 seed. They win the game the day of this news against Northeastern. I am so impressed by the Bulldogs roster this year to play through all of that adversity. As the athletic director, Zach Selman, and whoever else part of that brass was on a flight to Charlottesville during the 7th inning of the game to go get Brian O'Connor. They chalked it up like the game was over. They were actively rooting for the team to lose. That way they could go and get Brian O'Connor. The timeline of this just seems very, very, very peculiar and disappointing. But am I surprised? No. Johnny, I think this was a home run hire for Mississippi State. I'm not ridiculing the hire whatsoever. I think that what Brian O'Connor has done at Virginia and built that program into a monster where it previously was not is an incredible job. It is the ACC's only national title in 70 years.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a hire, and I think he's going to do really good things for like a 10-year span until he retires, maybe 8. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he's a Hall of Fame coach, man. I mean, he's one of the best to ever do it. There's a reason why he was at Virginia for over 20 years. He is the face of Virginia baseball. I mean, what was that program before he got there? And look how many stars, look how many MLB players he's turned out. I mean, this guy's had so much success. And, listen, I was big on Virginia coming into the year, and I don't think a lot fell their way. I think just some injuries happened, and a couple guys that they were expecting to be good, especially on the mound, weren't. It didn't seem like UVA was focused coming out of this year. And you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Like, I have no idea if Brian O'Connor came into this year thinking it was his last and maybe the energy was off. I don't know, because I'm not in the building. It just, something seemed off about UVA this year, and we both agree that they should have been in. I really liked them coming into this year. But in any case, Brian O'Connor is bolting to Mississippi State. I think this is the hire, man. Like, there wasn't a better guy to go get if you're Mississippi State. You get rid of Chris Lemonis, who did deliver you a 2021 title run. And I was honestly calling for Lemonis to go last year. I don't like to do that, but just watching Mississippi State, I thought they needed a change. I thought this program, considering how great it is and how much potential it has, the resources they have, which is something that Brian O'Connor didn't have nearly enough of at UVA, is going to have unlimited funds and whatever the hell he wants at this program down in Starkville. So it's a home run hire. I expect him to get to work right away, dude. And I think, like a lot of people, that Mississippi State will be a big player next year. I think they're going to get back to being a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with. What I wonder is who comes over with him from UVA. Does he bring Aiden Teal? Does he bring Henry Ford? I know some of the people in our group chat think Ford's going to go to the draft.
Yeah,
I personally think he could benefit from another year, because I thought Ford was a first rounder coming in, and I don't think he's going to be. I think another year of seasoning is something that Ford could use. But in any case,
Ford's a homegrown kid though in Virginia, Charlottesville. Like, he was a Virginia fan, went to the College World Series that they won.
Listen, I get it, man, but it's a business decision. It's a business decision. I get it. He could stay. He could go to the draft. I totally understand. I'm just saying, like, potential, like, who comes with him. And then furthermore, I've seen on Twitter, but like this was already kind of going on for the past week, that Corey Muscara, the pitching coach from Wake Forest, is going to come with him. Like Corey Muscara is one of the key founders and instrumental parts of the Wake pitching lab. Like 2 years ago, Wake Forest pitching took over the sport. And the biggest thing from that pitching staff was the pitching lab. And then from that point on, everybody's got a pitching lab. And so people are like, well, this program had a pitching lab before, but like, no, not like this. Not like what Wake Forest has. Now there's more programs coming out, and Corey Muscara is the architect, or one of the key architects of that. So like, listen, we're talking about Max Wiener as maybe the top pitching coach in the country. Corey Muscara is very high on that list. Corey Muscara, I don't think there's three better pitching coaches in the country than Corey Muscara, despite what Wake Forest pitching was this year in terms of a down year. Muscara is going to come in and recruit some big names right away, dude. I mean, we've seen some, like last year, we saw some dogs at Mississippi State. My boy Gerangelo, Cal Steven, Nate Dom before he went down, among a bunch of other guys. So
yeah,
this is a great hire, Noah. Muscara coming in. Now, what I wonder is the Wake freshmen or some of the Wake pitchers, do they follow Muscara? I got a kid up from my neck of the wood that's going to Wake next year. Does he decommit and transfer over or commit to Mississippi State? There's a bunch of questions. Corey Muscara is a St. John's guy. He was actually there when I was there, not in school, but he was a coach when I was there. So I think Muscara is a fantastic get as well. He, along with Brian O'Connor, can make Mississippi State a real big player next year. I think it's a no doubt hire. It's like a no-brainer grand slam home run hire for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, dude, you were mentioning and wondering who he was going to bring with him. I mean, you're already kind of seeing that. Kevin McMillan, rumored to join Brian O'Connor. He's been the longtime, right-hand man of O'Connor at Virginia. He's been there every step of the way. And also the other one, who his name, I'm trying to find it right now, Kendall Rogers put it out earlier. Both of his top assistants are joining him in Starkville. So yeah, it's going to be a total rebuild in Virginia, which is unfortunate. Everything that we saw with Texas A&M when Jim Schlossnagle, joined and took the Texas job, expect to see that with the Virginia roster. Everybody's going to be entering the portal right now. Bradley Hodges is already in there. He was the midweek reliever or midweek starter for Virginia this year. That's a solid arm, and now is available for anybody to reach out to and contact. And that's I don't know, quite a development in the college baseball world. Johnny, we have 6 games to talk about for the Monday Game 7 slate in the regionals. We just saw UCLA take down UC Irvine. I mean, UCLA dropped 38 runs this weekend in 3 games. Outstanding weekend for the Bruins. I tipped my cap. That was a team that I bet against. But we've got 7 games. North Carolina and Oakland. Are these confirmed times? It looks like we've got confirmed times. So North Carolina, Oklahoma, 3 p.m. It's a shit show with the pitching to try to project who's going to go for a lot of these teams. For North Carolina, I have not dove into any of these box scores, so I'm kind of speaking out of my ass when I mentioned possible, probable pitchers. But my projection could be that Folger Boaz gets the start for North Carolina in Game 4 this weekend.
I think he threw today, right?
Did he throw today?
I don't know if he started. I didn't watch it.
I assume Houck threw. I assume Houck started. And then Folger could go for UNC in this game. And Oklahoma, I don't know.
Boaz could throw. He threw 34 pitches today.
Okay. So, yeah, he probably doesn't start. It might go to Lynch if Lynch hasn't thrown a ton. He started a game in the ACC tournament. But, yeah, North Carolina, today, I should say, quite a offensive showing from North Carolina or from Oklahoma. They put up 9 runs in that winner's bracket game, 17 in the loser's bracket game. They scored 26 runs in the day. That was an offense that I really kind of doubted. I took the under in Oklahoma, Nebraska. So it was a great day. Are they going to be able to follow it up against North Carolina tomorrow? Me personally, I'm going to doubt it. I'm going to take the Tar Heels once again to win this game, get out of the Chapel Hill Regional. Johnny, your thoughts here?
Yeah, it was disappointing because UNC had a couple chances to, their pitching really wasn't that good. They surrendered some runs early. Their offense had a chance to get them back in it, take the lead. They couldn't do it. They left runners on. I think they had bases loaded, nobody out in the 7th or the 8th, and they didn't score a run. Like, I don't know how that's possible. I don't understand it. But here we are. UNC decided to take a nice 2-0 advantage, absolutely jump all over Kyson Witherspoon, but they still find themselves in a winner-take-all regional game. I had UNC representing the left side of the bracket for the College World Series. I'm going to stay with the pick. I don't like to jump ship on my picks. I think they're the more talented team. I think the UNC Tar Heels will be winning this region. And the fact is they will be facing the Arizona Wildcats next week.
Yeah, just to get a number here, because I don't believe we have odds out there currently. 6 Monday games. The College Baseball Insiders matchup predictor has North Carolina minus 295 and Oklahoma plus 295, straight up without any pitching projections in this matchup.
I have a question for you. How does it work if, knock wood, say Oklahoma were to win and Oklahoma, Arizona play? Who's
both
the
teams
host?
bid? So you put in a bid, however much money you think it's worth for you to host, and then you get to reap the benefits of the entire weekend of income that you get. A big tiebreaker is how much both programs and athletic departments bid to host, but also it goes into facilities, and Oklahoma doesn't really have the best, and Arizona's got a former minor league stadium. So I think Arizona would probably get the nod there on a bid. I really do. USC and Oregon play tomorrow in a game at, I think this one's at 9 p.m. Eastern. I don't think this is totally updated. I believe I saw 6 p.m. local time for them, so that would be 9 p.m. for us. USC, Oregon. Pitching, I have no idea. Oregon State played through the loser bracket, so I don't know who the Beavs could possibly throw out there. Eric Segura did not have a good game the first time on Friday. Didn't get out of the first inning. He probably only has 40 pitches on the wing. You may see him if he didn't throw it all today. And for USC, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who would go. They've thrown Caden Aoki. They've thrown Caden Harris. They've thrown Andrew Johnson in all 3 of their games.
I think it'd be Caden Hunter.
Or, sorry, Hunter, not Harris.
Hunter. I don't know how you don't throw Hunter. He only threw an inning and a third, 21 pitches against St. Mary's on Friday.
Okay.
Or Saturday.
So, yeah, then that's a huge spot for Hunter, who's kind of fallen out of favor in that weekend rotation.
He's had some really bad starts. But
yeah. His momentum, his trend has been really bad.
But
he was locked down the beginning of the first 2 months of the year.
I mean, the stuff's there, man. He's just been inconsistent. The walks have been a little bit too high, and his big bugaboo is the home runs. It's the walks and the home runs. But listen, this is a sprint. You need him to be good for one game. So I mean, if your winner take all is a guy with Caden Hunter's talent, you're in a pretty good spot, even against a team like Oregon State, who's got some boppers in their lineup. So that's actually a pretty. There's teams that could be doing a lot worse than Caden Hunter in this situation.
1,000%. I am with you every step of the way here. The matchup predictor over at College Baseball Insiders, because we don't have any odds, would list at blank face value, pitching staff, team ERA, Sierra, whatnot. Oregon State would be a minus 189 favorite. I would bet anything at plus 189 or around that ballpark on USC. And I'm wearing an Oregon State shirt. I tend to call it how it is. I think Southern Cal could be live in that game based on how Segura pitched earlier in this tournament as well. Both starting guys not necessarily in the best trend of who we think may get the ball here. Johnny, do you have a pick?
I think honestly, if it's say it is Hunter versus Segura, it's hard for me not to take Oregon State because they're at home. I think they just took St. Mary's too lightly, honestly. I think that's really what it is. USC, man, you can't count them out. Do they get boat race 2 games in a row? I would need a little bit more time. But I think USC, if it's Hunter over Segura, I'd probably give USC the nod there. The problem is, unless there's a ton of walks, which is definitely possible, does USC have the bats in order to score what they need? Because quite frankly, I think the winning team is going to probably have to score at least 8 runs here. I think you're in the annals of each team's bullpen. Guys are pitching tired. They're fighting for their lives. I think you're going to need 8 runs. So I'd be curious what the total is. But side-wise, this head versus heart thing. I feel like Oregon State would probably find a way to pull it out. But because I don't really love Oregon State this year. I was big on them last year. They were one of my big teams last year, Oregon State. I feel like they would find a way to pull it out. But I got news for you. If we get a total in like the 14.5 range, I think we got to play that over. There's absolutely a scenario where Segura shows up. He does well because he's capable. Caden Hunter shows up and does well because he's capable. And we see something that's like a 6-3 game. But there's also a scenario where like both of them aren't sharp and the bullpens are just gassed and it ends up being a higher scoring game. So I'd probably look for the over.
The next game here is Ole Miss and Murray State. And give me the over. Before we even talk about this thing, this has to be 18 for me to not take the over here, based on the lacrosse scores that we've seen in this regional so far. Murray State's completely torched, Ole Miss and Georgia Tech's pitching staff up until this point. That first game against Georgia Tech, Ole Miss throws Cade Townsend for 43 pitches. They throw Mason Nichols for 43 pitches. They throw Will McCausland for 30. All of those guys kind of will be wait and sees to see if they come back. And then I was kind of impressed with Ole Miss and the arms that they were able to run out there and keep Murray State to legitimately 8 runs. That was actually kind of impressive. Dennis goes out there and gets bombed, but Rodriguez and Waters did a good job at really doing the cleanup duty. They're only surrendering 6 hits in 5 innings. This Racers team has been hitting everything that they've seen. It's been really, really impressive. However, Ole Miss dropped 19 today on that pitching staff, and I'm very curious of what Murray State decides to do. I think they go back to Nick Schutte, who threw that first game against Ole Miss, looked really impressive, goes 8 innings, gives up 4 or 5 runs. I can't remember how many, but we saw it with Evansville last year, the 4 seed that was sitting in the winner's bracket of the Greenville region. Even though it was their 4th game, they went back to their ace. And I think that Schutte might be game. So if that's the case, that's pretty interesting. For Ole Miss, I have no idea. And that's why I'll probably go back to Riley Maddox. As you've played 4 games in this weekend, you've used 9 arms on Sunday. I think you probably have to go back to square one on who you threw on Friday. So yeah, this matchup's tough. I probably go Murray State money line. I definitely go over. Johnny, your thoughts?
I'd have to see the price. I picked Ole Miss to win the region, to be honest. But like, if you're going to give me Murray State, even close to plus 200, how do you not take it? The overs is no doubt. Look at this is Ole Miss this weekend. 15 runs against Murray with Murray combined with Murray State first game. Next game against Western Kentucky was 14 runs. Georgia Tech earlier today, 20 runs. Murray State this evening was 20. What was that? 27 runs. They scored 30 runs today in a doubleheader. That was insane. So, I mean, like, listen, dude, I did pick Ole Miss, but it wasn't because I thought they were that good. I mean, listen, if you're going to give me Murray State anything close to, like I said, 2-1, how are you not going to take it? I just, I think that's it's kind of crazy. But yeah, dude, the over. I mean, I hope we get like a 15.5 or something like that. I mean, we're hitting this motherfucker. No questions asked. I really don't know who you would throw if you're Ole Miss, dude. I think Riley Maddox is probably the guy you got to go back to, and that's a little alarming considering the amount of home runs and walks this kid gives up. But the talent's there, and we've seen him have big outings before. He threw 70 pitches on Friday. That's not too many. You can definitely come back out here and at least give your team 3 or 4.
Yeah.
On short rest.
Randy, man, in the chat. No shit, they're AI based. I look at the format of the text and it's not even completely sending because it's too many characters after the 4th line. I appreciate the effort, but we're okay. I like I said, I appreciate the effort, but I mean, I've already kind of put you in timeout for trying to promote your own whatever you're trying to do. But yeah, thanks for joining us. We've got a great community here, 60 plus watching live at 3 a.m. Johnny, we were shooting for an hour show and we've gone way over, but we're having fun. Let's continue on with the Monday picks. We've got 6 games. We've already talked about 3 of them. Wake Forest, Tennessee. Johnny, I'll put you up on a tee. You go ahead, bat lead off here. What do you expect between the Demon Deacons and the Volunteers on Monday?
Tennessee really had to lose that game today. Again, what was the problem when they were going to play LSU a month ago? What was my biggest concern for Tennessee? You remember?
Your starting pitching depth?
Fucking bullpen, dude. God damn, you don't remember? We talked about this ad nauseum. The bullpen let them down today. I mean, they should have been able to beat Wake Forest, and they didn't. They coughed up some late runs, and that ended up hurting them. And I think one of the problem with Tennessee this year is Liam Doyle has not been good in the last month. He's been a problem. And when your starting pitching depth is as thin as Tennessee's been for the second half of the year, you need Doyle to be on point. But the biggest problem is they haven't had a number 3 pitcher all year. Yeah. So I don't know who they're going to go with. And I think they're probably going to have to do some little combination here. I mean, Dylan Loy, he threw 21 pitches today. I wonder how much they give him. Like Brandon Arvidsson's done. He threw 108. Nate Snead, do you go back to him? He threw 41 pitches today in a loss, which is definitely not ideal if you're Tennessee. I mean, honestly, the guy I would probably maybe consider, but then you have to consider his health because it's a draft year from his AJ Russell. AJ Russell threw 51 pitches yesterday.
You can't. There's no way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't go to him then, right? So who would you possibly go with? I mean, Tegan Coombs seems like a guy that I think you probably have to throw out there. Maybe Tanner Franklin.
Did he throw today?
Okay, so today they played Wake Forest. It was Loy, Arvidsson, Snead against Cincinnati on Saturday, the game they won.
Yeah, so it's Coons. Coons hasn't thrown it all this weekend.
It was
Coons
Phillips, Russell, Arvidsson. So it's probably going to be Coons and Franklin if we're using context clues.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, they both got the stuff, dude. But
Liam Doyle threw 104 pitches on Friday. It's tough to bring out a top 10 pick, first round pick at the minimum on 3 days rest.
The only way I'd see Doyle come out is if like Tennessee's trying to close it down in the 9th.
8th and 9th inning. Yep.
Yeah, like maybe he throws an inning, like if they need him to lock it down. But I think realistically, it's going to be Tanner, some sort of combination of like Tegan Kuhns and Tanner Franklin, who both have ERAs in the fives. They both have strikeout stuff, but they're not consistent enough. But at this point, you need somebody to step up, and they're going to go with that combination. But here's the thing, though: Wake Forest, which is something I mentioned from them, they don't have like a legitimate ace this year. Like Blake Morningstar has been really good, but I don't think he's ace status. But what they did was they poached a bunch of like Friday night guys from obscure programs. So they can have one of those guys come out there, and even if it's like 4 or 5 innings, that could be enough. Like a guy who I really thought was going to be good this year for them in some capacity was Matt Bedford, who had some really good starts at Notre Dame as their Friday night guy last year. I mean, honestly, the guy I think could actually get some look today or for this game. I want to check to see how much he threw.
Yeah, I'm looking at all the pitching right now.
I think honestly, the guy that I would probably point if I'm Wake Forest is Griffin Green.
That was who I was going to mention as well.
Griffin Green has been a big reliever for them this year.
19 pitches on a Friday. That was it.
Yeah. For those that remember, Green was a Friday night guy for Virginia Tech 3 years ago.
Yep.
He transferred. He was actually running point on a pretty good VTech rotation a few years ago. That's when Oklahoma went in and beat them. And VTech at the time was top 10, and Green was running point, and this kid was good. So
he had Tommy John though. So
that's what it was.
So he was taken out, for a year and a half, and then he transfers after we all thought he would be back as Virginia Tech's #1 this year. And then he's been out of the bullpen, not really going long because of coming off that arm injury, but he seems to be like the most fresh arm, just as he's stretched out. And if he's not, then you probably look at a Chris Lavonis, who only threw, I think, 40 on Saturday.
So Green's thrown 35 and a third this year. What has been the most he's thrown? Because, like, listen, you might be able to get 3 out of Green on a start, and you'll take that. Green's went 4 innings. He's done 56 pitches before. He threw 19 on Friday against Cincinnati. He hasn't thrown 30 pitches since May 10th against Pitt. He threw 56 against Stanford on April 25th. Early in the year, he was getting some pitches. He had a few outings where he was in the 40s. I got to be honest. I think you might be able to get 3, possibly 4 out of Griffin Green if you start him, and then maybe you go Lavonis, maybe Joe Areola, who at like one point this year was one of their key relievers, can get in some innings. He didn't throw. He hasn't thrown. He against Miami, Ohio. He ended up throwing on 531. He threw 9 pitches. So I think Areola is live to go a couple innings.
Yep.
So I think they're going to.
I like maybe Hayden LeFew too. He was a midweek starter last year. This year he's been more of a leverage reliever. So I would keep an eye on LeFew as well.
I'm actually wondering, do you think maybe Austin Breedlove for Tennessee goes? Breedlove's thrown 23.2 innings, but he's got a 3.42 ERA. He only threw a third of an inning against Miami, Ohio.
Either way, I kind of like Tegan Kuhns as their starter. I think we've hit that pretty well.
He's probably gotten the most Sunday action, but I mean this is him last against Vandy in the conference tournament. 1 1/3 innings, 4 earned. The start before that against Arkansas, 2 innings, 4 earned. He hasn't had anything close to a good outing since March 22nd against Alabama. So he's given up an earned run in every single appearance he's had in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 appearances. He's given up at least 1 earned run.
So that's why he hasn't really, got out there, got some run. On the matchup predictor, Tennessee is minus 461 with Stavs compared to each other. I'd be looking at Wake Forest if it gets anywhere near there, but it's not. And then if it's Griffin Green versus Tegan Kuhns, it's even higher. So I'm really confuzzled on that. So that means I'm probably going to land on Wake Forest in some type of capacity, whether it's run line or money line, if we get something in that ballpark, because I think that's a little crazy.
I also think the offense for Wake Forest has been a lot better. They've kind of found their groove towards the end of the season.
Both
I think it's
honestly.
But I mean,
probably be an over.
An over's a look here, but sort of like the Murray State thing. If you're going to give basically a coin flip matchup, the underdog 2-1, it's hard not to take it. No betting. Like betting aside, I picked Tennessee to go to the College World Series, so I'm going to stay with that. But in terms of a bet, like I would think Wake Forest, if you're getting anything close to that number, is definitely worth taking a ticket. And I'd be curious to see what the over is or the total is as well.
We don't have to spend a ton of time on this matchup. LSU Little Rock. The Trojans do have the hammer. They will be the home team in this matchup.
Again?
Yeah. It goes on how many home games have you played in the regional.
It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I like it. I
hate it. If you're the regional host or super regional host, you earn the right to be the host. You should never be the away team.
How much do you want in that advantage? You already host. You already have your home field and home fans.
You should get every single advantage. Like Little Rock doesn't deserve an advantage in any.
You don't need to be the home team every game.
You do, and like you should. Your LSU shouldn't. You're the host. You shouldn't be, especially shouldn't be the away team in back-to-back games. The fuck?
I think it should be. Little Rock's only been the home team once prior to the regional final, so now it's going to even out. But look, Little Rock in their 5th game, they probably go back to the combo of Jackson Wells, and they'll even probably use Jack Klein on 2 days of rest or 1 day of rest, whatever. Like they're going to go all out for a regional W. I feel LSU. That's one of your things where are you going to trot out one of those first rounders on short rest? I don't think Einson's coming out of that pen to throw. This is quite interesting because they're probably going to need that one guy to show up and pitch really well. We did not see that out of the bullpen today in that same exact position, Johnny.
Yeah, that third starter, man, Chase Shores really let them down. And they've been fumbling to find a third starter ever since. Anthony Ianson threw 98 pitches on Friday. So, in regards to like that Liam Doyle kind of scenario, I don't see him throwing more than an inning, maybe 2. Mm-hmm. So you're going to need somebody to step up. Now, I guess what the question is, like, what's been the usage for like a Zach Cowan this weekend? Has he thrown a lot? I haven't seen if Cowan's really been used that much this weekend. But listen, dude, I got to go. LSU is my College World Series pick. I got to go with LSU. I can't fucking take Little Rock. I mean, listen, if the run line is like 4.5 again, something crazy, then, I'm going to take the Little Rock plus 4.5. But the fact is, I'm taking LSU. But here's interesting. Something's interesting. Zach Cowan hasn't thrown since May 15th.
Yeah, he hasn't thrown at all this weekend. I was just going through all the game logs.
Is he hurt?
No, I think that you're probably saving him for the doomsday scenario. Because game 1 against Little Rock, they won 7-0. Anthony Ianson went out there and shoved. Game number 2, they blow out Dallas Baptist, and Cade Anderson goes out there and shoves. So you don't need to use a top arm there. And then today was a total shit show, and you got down early, so you weren't going to use Zach Cowan out of the leverage inning, So he probably starts.
I think Zach Cowan's a stud. He hasn't pitched in a while. That's the one thing that concerns me because that's the rust versus rest. We rarely see these guys that are 2 weeks off because pitchers are very weird, dude. It's not like the NFL where you could get a half and kind of ease back into it in the second half, bro.
Also, that SEC tournament, now that I think about it, Jaden Newt had an incredible start in that first game. Then the second game, they go Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson back-to-back, and they didn't use bullpen there either. So, that's what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, rust versus rest, that's a little concerning because, pitchers are weird creatures. They need to be on schedule. A day short, a day late, that's off their routine.
Yeah.
The other guy I would consider throwing in some capacity is going to be William Schmidt. He threw 30 pitches in 1 inning against DBU on Saturday. But, he's a freshman. He should be good to go. I think having a taste of the regional here, I think William Schmidt should be good between 2 and 4 innings, depending on how much he can go. I got to be honest, I might be a little bit more inclined to go William Schmidt to start because he's a little bit fresher and he's got the experience in terms of like getting a taste in the regionals. So I'd probably look to go Schmidt anywhere from 2 to 4 innings, whatever you can get. And then Zach Cowan, 2 to 4 innings. And then honestly, bro, you probably just got to figure it out from there. Maybe Case and Evans, even as a freshman, can handle it. And then, your offense is going to show out here. And then you could build a lead and throw maybe Ianson for an inning or 2 to close this shit out.
I'm with Jack DeLongchamp here. I think they start Zach Cowan. He was last year the SoCon pitcher of the year. In the regional, he went out there and shoved for 8 innings in the losers bracket game for Wofford. So I think Cowan gets the ball early and gets to be able to dictate this game. You're not going to give it to William Schmidt, who hasn't started many games the entire year, a freshman, to go out there and possibly put you behind the 8 ball. You want to dictate how this game goes. So
Case and Evans also hasn't thrown this weekend. So, listen, LSU's got high-octane arms ready to go. William Schmidt threw 30 pitches, but that's fine for him. Like, this is a kid that was coming in ready to be a starter. This is a guy that's going to be an ace for this program the next 2 years. So he's geared up to have a big workload. You have 3 of your most talented arms in the bullpen that are ready to go and really haven't had much, if any, workload. So, listen, bro, I think LSU's going to deal with it, dude. I don't pick this team to fucking win the College World Series and then get bounced by Little Rock. I will have an absolute fucking meltdown if Little Rock beats LSU.
I'll love it.
A meltdown.
I would love it. We need a 4 seed, and
no, we don't.
We do. We need a 4
There's
seed.
been enough. It's been enough. I'm up at 3:18 in the morning Eastern time talking about LSU playing Little Rock, and you want Little Rock to win? Don't be selfish. Don't be selfish.
I have LSU winning the national championship as a ticket once.
So
I
don't
saw the
pick
bracket.
Little Rock. There's been enough.
I want Little Rock to win. I want chaos. I root for the little guys.
No, there's been enough bullshit going on this weekend. Root for Murray State. Let Murray State take the fucking 4 seed.
Give me another Stony Brook. I'm rooting for Murray State too. I'm rooting for both.
No.
The final game here is the 3 seed Miami against Southern Miss in Hattiesburg. Pretty uncompetitive games from Miami, honestly. Game 1 was the only competitive matchup they had where they come back and take the lead and win that game. AJ Siskar throws. They used Brian Walters in the 9th inning. They had to use him quite a bit there. They then blow out Columbia. They don't have to use any of the bullpen. And then they get blown out by Southern Miss. And I don't believe they used any of their top bullpen arms here. So to me, I think Miami's the team that you want to be on the side of. Johnny, do you agree? What's your read on this game? Southern Miss just beat them today, 17-6. They had a 10-0 lead after the top of the second, and then Miami puts up 6 runs in the middle innings, and then once it kind of got to the point where Miami was not going to be able to complete the comeback, Southern Miss again was tacking on at the end to dress up that score again.
Wonder if UCM blew their load today. That's the appealing thing. I didn't love USM because I don't know, man. Their pitching depth after JB Middleton was a big question mark for me. I would probably think Matthew Adams can go.
Oh, I think it's Cross Sibley. I think he goes.
Yeah, well, he's been one of their big relievers, but I think Adams in some form can go. I think it could be that combo again. He threw 75 pitches against Columbia, in the beating he took against that 4 seed. But I got to be honest, man. I think Miami's frisky. And you know why? Because Miami's got the best player on the field, Mr. Danny Cuvée, the reincarnation of Yohandy Morales. I can't look at this kid and not just see Yo-Yo Morales hitting 450-foot shots to deep left center as he picks up the whole team and carries them on his back. That's what this kid is, bro. This kid is Superman. He's going to be. I think he's going to be a top 5 pick next year if he plays. The way he's played his first 2 years, if he plays like that next year, top 5 pick, no question about it.
So NCAA Insider's matchup predictor has it Southern Miss minus 167. So what we're both talking about here, I would be looking at the Hurricanes here at plus money. Anything around that plus 167 ballpark, I'm on. Anything minus or anything plus 120-ish is probably the range that I start to think about it. I have to be higher than plus 120 to get on Miami there.
Hugus was big for them. What did he throw? He threw a complete game, 122 pitches the other night.
They didn't use the bullpen at all.
So I'm sorry. Who did you say you think Miami goes with here?
For Miami, I think that they used Brian Walters quite a bit because he was a starter at the beginning of the year. He only threw like 30 pitches on Friday. I think at some point in this game, whether he starts or whether he comes in the middle innings, your bulk pitcher is going to be Brian Walters.
Okay, yeah. The starter experience is nice, especially this time of year. You get both from him. Miami's frisky, dude. I don't know. I think USM probably. I could see USM running out of bullets. I could after putting up a 17 spot. I'm just trying to see how many pitches Walters has thrown.
I think it's 30-ish on Friday.
Truth be told, dude, I think because this is one like I don't really care. I don't personally see either of these teams having.
Walters threw 29 against Alabama on Friday.
Oh, he hasn't thrown. So yeah, Walters starting makes sense to me. You got to get probably 4 or 5 from him. Yeah, listen, dude, if you're getting like 150 with Miami, I think you got to take it because I mean, personally, I don't think there's a big advantage on either side. And basically at a coin flip game, if you're going to give me the big plus money with a team like Miami, who's got the best player on the field, it's got to be Miami.
All right. That wraps up the picks portion of this. Before we get out of here, Dilly Daggers is begging to know what happened. I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I don't even really know. It was not public, but Kevin O'Sullivan was upset with the game time being moved back an hour. I assume that he probably had Pierce Coppola warming. And Coppola is a guy that has gone through multiple arm injuries. So if you move the game time back, he's going to be, of course, upset because now you've got him sitting around for 45 minutes to an hour if you have him starting to get warm. So that was what happened. I'm sure that O'Sullivan voiced his opinion about it, and the site athletic director for Coastal Carolina, or at least the representative, was Gary Gilmore, who was the retired, former head coach of Coastal Carolina. And Kevin Schnall didn't like it, and that's why he voiced his opinion about it in the postgame presser. So that's going to do that for the show. You can follow me on social media at NoahB77_. You can follow Johnny at _JohnnyVTV. Johnny, anything that you want to plug? Monday should be an outstanding day of baseball. Once again, should be really coming down to whichever offense is hotter, honestly. That's going to be dictating it. But your thoughts?
Yeah, 1 game sprint, dude. It's a 1 game season right now. If you got any bullets left, use them all in this game. And let's real quick, we got to give a quick shout out. Congrats. Clap it up for our boy Jack Caglione. Jack got called up this evening. It was a brutal weekend, but in this just pure sight of brutalness, there was beauty. The Italian prince from Tampa will be a Kansas City Royal come Tuesday evening. Looking forward to betting a little home run there. And Jack, no, I will not be betting Little Rock. I'll take a taste on the 4.5 if we're getting a nice fat, juicy run line. I think that's worth it. But I'm riding the Tigers here all the way to Omaha and beyond.
These low seam baseballs, man. The offenses are playing up. Little Rock had the worst offense, the worst RPI in the field of 64 entering the weekend, and they're putting up runs like it's nothing right now. So it's awesome.
If Little Rock wins, I'm drinking a triple bleach martini.
All right. You can follow the show also on Twitter and social media at TCE on SGPN. Hit that like button, subscribe, leave a like, rating, review wherever you're listening to on podcast platforms. This was a hell of a show. We went 2 hours. Was not expecting that, but it was a lot of fun. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been the College Baseball Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we are